Do you believe you cannot be a world-class arm wrestler because of your genetics? You're not the only one. That thought has stopped countless people from ever stepping up to the table, because it's the easiest reason there is to quit on your dream of becoming a champion before you've even started. Here's the problem. It feels true, it even feels scientific. But most of what people believe about genetics and performance is wrong or not thought through. And I'm going to show you what the actual science says and why it doesn't mean what you think it does. Because genetics might influence how far you can go, but they don't decide whether you ever reach your potential that starts in your head. So let me start by explaining why believing your genetics are too bad to become a champion might be the worst thing you can do to yourself as an arm wrestler. Here's why that thought feels so tempting. If you convince yourself you never had the potential anyway, you take all the pressure off. You don't have to actually try, and you don't have to risk finding out you failed. Psychologists have a name for this: self-handicapping. It means creating an excuse in advance before you've even attempted something, so that if you fail, it wasn't really your fault. And if you somehow succeed anyway, you still get the credit. But genetics is a uniquely dangerous excuse to pick. Unlike your training, your technique, or your effort, things you could go and actually change, your genetics never will. So the moment you decide it's genetics holding you back, you've created a life sentence for yourself instead of a problem you could still solve. And here's the honest part. You can't actually know if your genetics are good enough. Not from how you look, not from your hands, not from anything. The only way to find out is to train seriously for years and see what happens. Which means if you write yourself off before you've even tried, you're not protecting yourself from a bad outcome. You're just guaranteeing one. So let's actually look at how likely it is to have genetics that are too bad for the top level. To figure that out, we first need to know which genetic factors actually matter here. The first big one is strength. Strength isn't just about how much muscle you have. It's also about how efficiently your nervous system can recruit and coordinate that muscle, as well as factors like muscle architecture and leverage. The nervous system side is highly trainable, especially when you're not already highly trained, and for most people it's not something you can simply assume will be their genetic bottleneck. Muscle mass, especially muscle size, architecture and fiber type characteristics, does have a stronger genetic component though. But here's the thing. Most people probably fall somewhere within a range of genetics that is workable for becoming very strong. The bigger limitation for most people isn't that their genetics are too bad, it's that they're nowhere near maximizing the genetic potential they already have. And if building muscle is still a struggle for you, you can compete in lower weight classes, where you don't need to be massive to be dangerous. The second factor is structure. The size of your hand, the length of your forearm, the thickness of your wrist and elbow, and how resilient your tendons are. Body size works the same way here as with muscle. It doesn't lock you out of the top level, because we can see world champions with every kind of build. Where genetics can actually hit harder is your joints and tendons. It's possible to draw a genuinely tough hand here. But even here, there's a huge difference between having less than ideal genetics and having genetics that make becoming a champion impossible. Tendons are highly adaptable to mechanical loading. They just adapt much more slowly than muscle, which means this is something you have to think about in years, not weeks. The third factor is recovery. There are real differences in how well people bounce back from hard training. But even this is something you can work around. If you struggle to recover from high-frequency table training, you can shift more of your workload toward the gym, reduce your table volume and structure your training around what your body can actually handle. Having worse recovery doesn't necessarily mean you have less potential. It can simply mean you need a different training strategy to reach it. Everything else, explosiveness, endurance, is either closely related to strength factors we just covered, or its importance depends heavily on how you choose to arm wrestle. You don't necessarily need to have every physical quality at an elite level if you can build a style that minimizes your weaknesses and maximizes your strengths. So when you add it all up, genetics absolutely matter. But for the most people, there's no reason to assume that genetics are the thing that will stop you from reaching the top. And there is no test that can tell you in advance that your genetics are simply too bad to become a champion. So what is the actual deciding factor then? It's your mindset. Telling yourself your genetics aren't good enough to become a champion has nothing to do with your actual genetics. It's about the conclusion you've chosen to make about yourself before you've even tested your potential. Think about it. How could you possibly know if you haven't trained seriously for years? Unless you have an actual diagnosed condition or a clear physical limitation, you simply can't know in advance how far you can take yourself. The only way to find out is to go and try. So how should your mindset be if you want to become the best you could ever be? First, you have to genuinely believe you're capable of becoming a champion. There's always a chance you're not, but you should believe it anyway, because that belief is exactly what makes you put in the work in the first place. I'm not saying you're guaranteed to become a champion. I'm saying that if you're going to give yourself a real chance, you have to believe becoming one is possible for you. So drop the limiting thoughts about yourself completely and replace them with the belief that you can do this. Second, this has to become one of the most important things in your life. Otherwise, you simply won't have the time or the energy to actually get there. If becoming a world-class arm wrestler is just something you'd like to happen, you'll always find something more important to do. At some point, the goal has to influence how you train, sleep, recover, eat, and spend your time. Third, you need to be consistent and disciplined with your training and your whole lifestyle, like an actual professional. To become a pro, you have to start acting like a pro, long before anyone calls you one. And fourth, you need a growth mindset, the willingness to learn something from every single situation and to keep the bigger picture in the mind instead of chasing small wins. That also means swallowing your pride, even when someone with far less experience than you has something to teach you. Your technique is bad, fix it. Your training isn't working, change it. You lose a match, find out why. Someone points out a weakness, listen to them. Your ego can't be more important than your progress. So can genetics stop you from becoming a champion? Maybe. None of us know exactly where our genetic ceiling is, but you'll never really discover that ceiling by not giving it a chance. So be brave enough to make big goals and believe in yourself. Believe that becoming a champion is possible. Then spend the next few years finding out how far you can actually go. Because believing in yourself is the first step to becoming a champion. If you want to know more about technique, I specially made a video about how to counter every move in arm wrestling. You can click it here.